During the past 50 years, feminists have painted men as sexual predators who oppress, abuse, and rape women. As a consequence, social justice warriors loudly condemn all men and latch onto every criminal act as proof men are a blight on society. Ever ready to use any excuse to increase government control and grow new bureaucracies, politicians have used this to drive fathers from homes, pack prisons with the product of single-mother households, turn college campuses into dangerous spaces for men, and to pass sexist laws, like the infamous Violence Against Women Act. After 50 years of this, men are beginning to wise up. They see men get married and father children only to be driven out of their home and live on the brink of poverty because most of their earnings go to support their estranged family. They see double standards everywhere, not just in divorce court, but in criminal court, sex crime court, and the court of public opinion. They see the lies that confuse the earnings gap with the wage gap. They see the income tax gap ignored. They see Congress continue to require men, but not women, to register for the draft. They see the sacrifices and contributions of men mocked, and the sacrifices and contributions of women exaggerated. They see good men abused and bad women praised. Turd Flinging Monkey makes lots of good videos on this subject, as do other members of the MGTOW community. But Brad Wilcox calls MGTOW an army of woman haters. Could this be true? Well, Mr. Wilcox is a sociologist. Sociology is a largely useless profession. He's a visiting scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, which merely makes him suspect. Some of what they produce is pretty good, but his original video on this subject was produced by Prager University. They're a neoconservative institution. In other words, they're right-wing progressives who entice conservatives and classical liberals into supporting big government. I don't trust them. I don't hate women either, and I'm MGTOW. When Aaron Clary says 98% of American women are a waste of time and not marriage material, I agree. That doesn't mean I hate them any more than the women hate men who agree with the old Brothers Grimm axiom that you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your handsome prince. Nobody ever claimed that was misogynistic. Same thing here. Most Western women are simply not marriage material. Well, some are. I know several who are, and I'm in love with some of them, but most of them are already married, and some of them would consider me far too old. Well, I'm only 63. I only got one foot in the grave, for heaven's sakes. Oh well, the legal climate in the West makes marriage a minefield for men anyway. Even if you do find and marry a unicorn of a woman, there's still significant risk that family court could ruin your life. You get into a shouting match, a neighbor hears, calls the police. By the time they arrive, you've kissed and made up. But a domestic violence call has been made, and the man must be removed from the home. Now you've got a police record. Or you take your young daughter to the park. Some feminist social justice warrior with a filthy mind sees you and ever vigilant for the opportunity to indulge in some good old-fashioned virtue signaling, calls the police to report a potential molester is hanging out at the park, or that an evil male predator is kidnapping a little girl. Next thing you know, you're cuffed and riding in the back of a police cruiser while your weeping child is swept up by Child Protective Services. Or your wife goes home to visit your in-laws while you take the kids to Disney World on Virgin Air, and you're required to sit separately because they don't allow unaccompanied men to sit with children. I don't know if Virgin Air still does that, but at one time they did. Men today are treated like second-class citizens in the eyes of the law, subject to lynch mobs without warning. So, like the producers in Atlas Shrugged, MGTOW have gone on strike. But we don't hate women. Yes, some MGTOW are very angry. Anger is a part of the grieving process. When we're young, our culture tells us that if boys behave a certain way, we'll be rewarded. It's a social contract. In return for being protective of women, children, and country, and romantic toward women, we will be rewarded. There will be love, work, and opportunities. But then comes what Sandman called the red pill, after the red pill, blue pill scene in the first Matrix movie, when Morpheus shows Neo the real world. First comes denial. No, that can't possibly be true. No. This is where Mr. Wilcox is, in denial. Then comes anger, what Sandman calls red pill rage. This is the group Mr. Wilcox and the feminists see and used to portray all the rest of us as misogynists. Next comes bargaining, which is where you find the men's rights activists and pickup artists. Having been at the epicenter of the men's rights movement once upon a time many years ago, I can speak with some authority on the matter, and it very definitely is bargaining, and it is futile. Following this, many lapse into depression. Earl Silverman did and hanged himself. But in acceptance is where you will find the majority of MGTOW. We've come to terms with this misandrous milieu, and like the producers in Atlas Shrugged, we're on strike. We're going our own way and reaching out to our fellow producers to educate them to the moochers and parasites who are spewing venom at the very people upon whom their survival depends. Contrary to what Mr. Wilcox and others of like mind claim, this does not make us woman haters. To the contrary. As I recall, in one of his early videos, Turd Flinging Monkey pointed out that MGTOW are the only men who can truly love women. Or maybe that was C.S. MGTOW. I forget. But it's because we fully understand female nature. In his Woman Haters article linked below, Mr. Wilcox repeats that married men make about $16,000 more per year than their single peers. Is that why gay men are among the most affluent demographic? That was not among the points the TFM raised in his response to Mr. Wilcox's original article, but at one time it was true and probably still is. Among the points that TFM did raise was that so many marriages end in divorce and that men are financially raped in divorce and family court. I don't recall if TFM said financial rape, but it's a term that has been used to describe what happens to men in divorce court for at least 20 years, and it's descriptive. Mr. Wilcox observes that men in stable marriages live, on average, almost 10 years longer than unmarried men. Here, he does not distinguish between divorced unmarried men and single, never married men. At 63, I'm single, never married, and daily I'm shocked by the sad health of my married and divorced peers. Mr. Wilcox's smear against MGTOW is baseless and relies primarily on the overly broad application of a couple of facts that ignore the many reasons mitigating against men getting married in this misandrous milieu. The vast majority of the men of MGTOW do not hate women. The more senior of us probably have more compassion for and acceptance of women than any other segment of the male population. But like the producers of Atlas Shrugged, we're unwilling to sacrifice ourselves to the parasites who hate and despise those upon whom their very survival depends.